Hi, thank you for joining me again for another video. Today we're going to discuss some of the more common constructions that you'll encounter in English relative to English sentences. So we're only talking about the different construction types that you'll find in English sentences. All right, that was hard for me to get out. Okay, you're not limited, I should say, to the list that you're about to see. There are other construction types. These just happen to be the most common. Oh, and forgive the noise in the background. I've got a very sensitive microphone and a lot of construction going on with our neighbors. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so before we get into it, it is important to know a few different elements to a sentence before we can kind of dive into each construction, because they're set up as formulas, right? You just need to know each variable or each part of that formula. You need to be able to define it. All right, so if we're looking at a subject, which I'm just going to go ahead and type up here, it's the, as we discussed in the previous video, it's a noun or a pronoun, excuse me, which performs an action in the sentence. You can think of it as like the, not the main idea per se, but the focus of that sentence, whatever that thing is, right? All right, and then we're also going to be discussing verbs. Reminder, you've got verbs which are actions or words describing an action. Just to be repetitive, but okay, I'm going to continue. And then we have objects. So whenever you have a verb, generally speaking, you're going to have an object of that action. Okay, the object is a thing which is receiving, I suppose, or it is the it's being affected by an action. So it's the thing which is being affected directly by the impacted directly by an action. Oh, geez Louise. All right, by an action. That took longer than it should have. Let me just I'm learning to format on the fly. All right, so let me go ahead and just underline each of these parts just to kind of differentiate where we're at. All right, the next one we're going to talk about, it looks like, is going to be an adjective. That's right. So an adjective, these are words which describe a noun. Numbers and colors are, generally speaking, going to be, well, are actually adjectives because they describe the quantity of something, the color of something. Words describing an odor, a taste, the way something feels, whether it's soft or hard. There's a whole list of different types of adjectives you would encounter, but just know that it is describing a noun, all right, or modifying a noun in some way. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next one, which we have is an adverb. All right, so adverbs, similar to the way in which an adjective will modify or describe a noun, adverbs instead will describe or modify, I suppose, a verb or an if I can spell today, or an adjective, right? It's not limited to only verbs, as the name might suggest. And that'll be a discussion for another video. But for now, we'll just leave it as that. I do want to elaborate a little bit though, but adverbs, you can think of them as when they're modifying a noun or modifying a verb or describing a verb. They can tell you which direction something's going, how often something happens, the manner in which something was done. Like, you can smile, which is an action. Okay, well, how can we describe that smile? Oh, you smiled sweetly, right? So it's describing the way that smile looked. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about, again, more fundamental, but what a noun is. Hopefully by now you should know, if you're joining me in this video. A noun is a person, place, or thing. Usually, it's generally something that's tangible, which means something that you can hold or you can see physically. Not always, there's exceptions, but all right. So now that we've broken down some of these variables or these components, we're going to go into the different constructions, right? The different types of sentences you'll encounter. Let me just give some space. All right, so the first type we have is very basic. It's subject and verb. Some examples include, I walked. Right? Or you can say he stared, or she sang. Right? In all of these, I have a subject, so I would be my subject, he would be the subject, that's the pronoun, she would be the subject, also a pronoun. What's the action? Oh, it's the walked in this case, stared, sang. These are all grammatically correct. The only thing I would add is that while you can absolutely, speak or write using subject and verbs, simply those two, and it would, you can get away with it. It's more often than not not reserved, but more often than not expected from more elementary tier students or younger kids who are just learning to communicate. So if you find yourself using this sentence variety or construction often, then I would invite you to explore some different options when communicating, because this, unfortunately, when you become too accustomed to following this very simple, direct way of communicating, right? I mean, it is pretty basic. It doesn't always give the best impression, right, of your intelligence or your skills, regardless of who you are. All right, just wanted to throw that out there. Especially for ESL students, so people, just learning English, this is their second language. All right, let's go ahead and look at subject, verb, and object. So now we're adding a little bit more complexity to our sentences. Here we can have a subject like my cat, Mr. Chunks, sat on the chair, right? Okay, well here we've got Mr. Chunks, which is our subject, What did he do? He sat. Well, okay, what did he sit on? Oh, he sat on the chair, right? So how do I differentiate this? I'm gonna make it bold. So that's the object in this case, in bold. Oops, come on. Trying to be as efficient. All right. Ooh, do you know what I can do? No, it's not letting me. Sorry, give me a sec. There we go. And then I'll just underline it just for measure. All right. Another example of not the most complex sentence construction, but still. Okay, he ran into the wall. Ouch. All right, so we've got our pronoun, which is acting as our subject, which is he. What did he do? Well, okay, the action is he ran. Okie dokie. And what did he run into? What was the object of him running? Right. In this case, it would be the wall. Very unfortunate for him. And you'll notice there are other parts to the sentence that I kind of threw in there. I really shouldn't have, because I've made it more complex than the formula would suggest. Like, for instance, he sat on the chair would actually be considered an adverb, right? Because it's telling you where he sat. Into the wall would be considered adverb is what I meant. Yes, adverb. Because it's telling you where he ran into, so directionally. So those would be adverbs, but for now, let's just look at the subject, verb, and object. All right. So, looking at subject, verb, adjective, you could say something as basic as she is very kind, right? Okay. So she would be our subject, the pronoun acting as a subject. Is a linking verb, but it's still our verb, in this case the acting verb. And kind describes her. Describes her, I suppose, right? Because it's describing the noun, which in this case is the pronoun she, whoever this woman is. All right, you could also say, going back to my cat, sorry, I just fed him, that's why. Mr. Chunks can be wild. All right, so Mr. Chunks in this case is our subject. Can be is like a version of the verb to be, right? So he can be. Be in this case will be our verb. Wild, it's describing Mr. Chunks, his personality or his temperament, I suppose. All right, and now we see, let me just drop this. We're looking at the subject and verb and adverb, right? So we can say his tail, so referring to my cat again, or any cat, his tail whipped wildly. Okay, here we've got our pronoun, which is his, right? The possessive pronoun. His tail, that was our subject, his tail. I can't think right now. So tail would be, I suppose, the subject of the sentence, right? Because that's the thing we're talking about, the whole part. His tail whipped, I'm having a brain fart today, wildly. So wildly is going to act as a descriptor for the manner in which that tail was whipping around, right? And then you can also say she's always late. Right. So she, or she's in this case, is going to be our subject because that's the person we're referring to, right? That's what the whole sentence is going to be about. That's what the predicate is conditioned on, is discussing. So she's always late. Well, what is the thing that she is? Well, she's late, right? That's going to be our verb. But what describes, in this case, the frequency for which she's late, which would be always. So always would be our adverb. And again, adverbs, generally speaking, tell you where something is going, how often, or in what manner. But again, that's more of a subject for another video. Let's go ahead and just jump back in. Oh, okay. Let me just provide some spaces just to give us some space. Oh, room. All right, so now we have a subject, verb, and noun, right? So you can say, she is a woman. All right. I mean, it's already implied with that pronoun, but so she is, right? It's the variation of to be, a woman. Whoops, I opened up a new window. Okay, a woman. Which is, it's a thing in this case. Not that women are things, but, a noun, person, place, or thing. Okay, person, excuse me. You could say he is a man. So in the same vein, right? So we have he, our subject, is would be our verb, and then man would be our noun. Okay, so let me just kind of buzz back to the top just as a quick review. We've gone over a couple different constructions in English as far as English sentence constructions. Again, these are more common. They're not the end-all be-all. There are other variations on these, which I will discuss in another video. But you have the more basics, starting with subject and verb, which is perfectly fine as far as grammar is concerned. You can just have a very basic sentence. However, I do want to remind you that it does tend to... because of its simplicity, sometimes if you communicate solely in this construction type, it doesn't give the best impression, right, of your skills, like I mentioned earlier. So if you want to put your best foot forward, as it were, and you want to present yourself as being intelligent and more articulate or a strong communicator, I suggest you, you can use this sentence type, but try not to use it too often, right? Although there are occasions where it just calls for it, right? All right, and then we have the subject, verb, and object. We have a subject, verb, and adjective. Subject, verb, and adverb, subject, verb, and noun. And again, in the next video, I'll discuss some of the other types. For now, I hope this answered some of the questions that I have been receiving. This was actually a request video from a couple people who had sent me messages regarding the different types. So I thought it would be kind of fun to go in and, break it down a bit. All right, I will be linking this document underneath the video should you want access to it. It's not formatted the best way, but feel free to use it if you'd like. Definitely subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It does help me in terms of growth. So anywho, hope you guys have a great day.